The Disabled Crone, a Spoonie Authors Network podcast hosted by Kat Gordon. Special guest, A. Gregory Frankson, writing memoir using poetic prose. Hi, I'm Kat Gordon, author, editor, cupcake eater, and welcome to the season finale of the first season of The Disabled Crone. Our topic today will be writing memoir using poetic prose. And today's guest, how the heck did I get this super awesome human being on this show, is not just A. Gregory Frankson, it's the Gregory Frankson. So Greg Frankson is a Toronto-based educator, consultant, public speaker, and award-winning literary artist and essayist. He edited and contributed to the critically acclaimed African anthology, Perspectives of Black Canadian Poets, appears in 5 literary anthologies, and published 4 poetry collections. He previously was the Poet Laureate of the International Initiative for Mental Health Leadership and resident poet on CBC Radio 1's Here and Now Toronto. His writings have appeared in numerous literary, digital, and journalistic publications. Greg's first book of creative nonfiction, Alphabet Soup, A Memoir in Letters, was released by Dundurn Press in January 2025. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, what's going on, Kat?
Well, like something totally amazing because you're here.
Oh, stop.
It's just so nice to actually chat with you. I mean, I found out who you were when the African anthology was happening with Renaissance, and then we were lucky enough to get you in the Nothing Without Us 2 anthology. And so it's just nice to actually chat, see a face, hear a voice.
Yeah, this is good. I think we're well overdue for this, so I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. Okay, you know what? As I was saying before, I'm not rich, so I don't have the fancy Zoom. So let's get on with this amazing interview. So I would love to know what got you started with poetry, because poetry just seems to be your love language. Like, how old were you when you just found this love of poetry, and when did you start writing it?
Well, it's interesting because my mom taught me how to read before I even started school. So I showed up in kindergarten already literate. So, watching kids eat Elmer's glue was not terribly entertaining for me. But as I made my way through my primary years and started to do my own writing, I think that that was when I first started to dabble with poetry. It was also around that same age when I started to sing in choirs. And then shortly thereafter, when I got into the senior years of elementary school, when I was about 11 or 12, is when I actually started to write for the purposes of performance. So I started off in hip hop and performed in hip hop groups all through high school and continued to do that in university. And during those time frames as well, I was also still writing poetry and also still singing in choirs and participating in bands and all of these different musical and creative endeavors. And so by the time I finished my degrees at Queen's University and moved off into the world of work, I had already developed something of a very, very mature musical voice and an emerging and developing poetic voice. When I went to visit some friends in Ottawa in the early 2000s, then I attended my first poetry slam. And then I realized in that moment that I could marry the more mature hip hop voice with that emerging poetic voice, dispense with the 4/4 time and the need to write in 16 and 8 line verses, and just experiment with the spoken word. And so in the summer of 2003, that's when I wrote and performed my first spoken word poem at a poetry event in Ottawa, where I was living at the time. And from there, that was the beginning of the true poetic journey. So I've been on this road now. This is my 22nd year pursuing poetry and writing in the way that I do it now.
Which is very weird because you're only 25. I mean, honestly, I did just find out you turned 50. I insisted it's an accounting error. And I totally believe that you were a performer. Folks, you don't know this, but I was just treated to Greg's beautiful singing voice before we started recording. So I only found found out about the term poetry slam a few years ago. Do you mind just explaining what they are?
Sure. In a nutshell, what happens is you'll open up a room. People usually sign on a first come, first serve basis, sign up to be a part of the show. You would get up on stage with a poem that you'd written yourself without the use of any props or nudity while on stage. You typically, in a standard poetry slam format, you'd be given a 3 minute time slot to perform your piece with a 10-second grace period with time penalties after that. You get up and you perform. You can perform in any style. You can rap, you can recite, you can sing bits, you can rhyme or not rhyme, whatever that looks like. And after you finish your performance and go and sit down, there will be five randomly selected judges in the audience who will then give you a score out of 10 to one decimal place, 7.3, 9.4, 8.2, etc. You take those five scores, you drop the highest score and the lowest score, add the three middle scores together for a score out of 30, and the poet at the end of the night who has the highest score wins. In the simplest terms, that's a poetry slam. But it is a very energizing and energetic experience. Folks come ready. The poems hit hard. They can be about love. They can be about politics. They can be meta about words and about poetry. They can be silly. They can be deadly serious. But at the end of the night, you'll see this great diversity and variety of voices and perspectives, and hopefully leave moved, affected, and touched in some profound kind of a way.
That's fantastic. You know what? I am going to just find out where these things are and go. It just sounds amazing. Sorry, that was just I'm really autistic and curious about things. So I just wanted to get that from you. But let's go to Alphabet Soup, because for me, this was a super unique experience. I have read many memoirs, but I never saw memoir expressed through a poetic prose before. And so that just blew my mind. And I was just wondering, I mean, I think I know the answer, but I was just wondering why you chose poetic prose to write a memoir as opposed to like what we typically see in memoir. Like, does poetic prose offer you, as I was thinking, more colors to paint with for a richer tapestry?
You know, it's interesting because I decided to write Alphabet Soup in the way that I did, partly as an evolution in my own writing journey. Because as you were stressing before, I came from the world of spoken word and poetry slam. I've also written, poems that are more intended to be observed and experienced on the page. And so those have been put together into those four previous poetry collections that I've published before now. But of course, I feel like I have a lot more to say. And as I've gotten older and had a whole bunch of different experiences informed by my gender and my race, as well as by my neurodivergent, expression, which is coming forward even more strongly as I get older, I felt that I needed to transition more into a storytelling genre. And so that was the desire to move more into creative nonfiction. So Alphabet Soup, this work actually represents for me a transition from poetry fully into the world of creative nonfiction. But having said that, it does provide those excellent flavors and colors as you were talking about.
It
And
does. It
yeah,
does.
it gave me an opportunity to write about my own personal experiences in such a way that animated what I had experienced, but allowed me to craft it creatively in ways that I hope will allow folks to see themselves in the stories and be able to identify those pathways as being relevant to the sorts of pathways that they've also followed in their own personal experiences.
And did you find a type of catharsis writing memoir in this fashion?
Oh, I felt so light when I finished writing, like when you go bing, and that's the last period at the end of the writing, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that's out.
I mean, and I got from you that we're supposed to just, you don't zip through this. You just want to absorb what you're reading. And so I was following that instruction. And I mean, there were some pieces that I just had to I needed to close the book and just let them wash over me. I wanted to know what letters of this alphabet really resonated with you in particular, or that you'll always kind of remember? I know we all love everything we write, but were there certain letters that really stand out for you?
Yes, there's definitely a few letters that stand out. I mean, I think the one that I get the most remarks about and the most feedback about is the letter R.
Yeah. Yes,
And
that's the one I had to just close the book and go, okay, I just need a minute.
yes, so the letter R, which is of course about respect and regret, those are the two R words that are the theme of that letter. And it's just a particularly powerful and potent one that is just a childhood recollection of loss
Mm.
and grief. And so that one does definitely hit hard for folks. Another letter that really stands out for me, just because of the personal import that it holds for me, is the letter Q,
Mm.
which examines quarrel as the theme, but which is kind of twisted what quarrel means within that letter as you read it. But anyway, it represents for me family tradition and heritage, and so that one has a particular place with me. Also the letter S, sanctimony.
Mm.
Yes, that letter is really about, when you talk about catharsis,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the letters with which I have gained the greatest amount of catharsis in being able to write that and get those feelings out of my body and somewhere else where they can live, where they can no longer hurt me. And so that's really particularly impactful as well. And of course, the letter G, which was the last one, which has the theme of gratitude. And that letter actually brings together all of the different pieces and energies from all of the preceding 25 letters. And there's little bits and pieces of all the other 25 letters in there. I encourage you to go back and reread it now that you know that.
Yeah, yeah. No, I did spot it, but I'm going to totally reread it.
Yes, it's there. It's all there. There's all of these little Easter eggs that I leave throughout the book in different ways. Later letters that refer to previous letters, certain words, phrases, or ideas or images that run through the book and everything like that. Because even though they are 26 individual letters written about particular individuals who've had some kind of impact on my life, good, bad, or ugly, it is ultimately a single book. And so there are going to be things that run throughout and show up and reappear in different ways. So it's all there.
Yeah, and it's funny, the letters that you mentioned were the ones that really hit me. And folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, that means you have to go and get Alphabet Soup. One of the things that I thought was kind of fun was how you use this randomizer. Like, the book, folks, isn't A, B, C, D, E. Like the letters appear in different random orders. And like, I want to know about that. Why did you decide to do that? I love it. To me, it's like stirring alphabet soup and finding out what letters appear on your spoon.
But that's precisely what it's supposed to mean. And that's precisely why I did it that way. It's not an alphabet soup if the letters show up in their order. If
Right.
you're supposed to dip your spoon in and pull out something and you're not really knowing which of the 26 letters is going to be on the spoon. That's the whole point. And so I went to random.org, put the letters, A through Z into it, hit randomize a few times until I got the letter I as the first letter. And what I really wanted was, because memoir is ultimately, at least in some way, shape, or form, all memoir is a form of self-reflection.
Right.
And so I wanted to begin with the letter I, because if you're engaged in self-reflection, you have to start with the self. And the self, for me, in the alphabet is represented by the letter I. So I randomized until letter I was first, and then that was the order that they showed up in. And I did write the letters in the order in which they appear. So I started with I, and then I wrote D, and then I wrote Y, and then I kept going because those are the first three letters, and I just kept going in the order in which they appeared. I had a sense of who I wanted to write about based on the words that I had selected as themes for each letter. So I selected the themes first,
Mm.
and then I decided, okay, well, which person is going to fit this theme the best? And so then I put the people into, whichever theme that was. And then I wrote the letters. So that was sort of the basic process that I followed. And so that's why as you're writing, certain things come up that you're not thinking about as you've looked at just this random jumble of letters.
Right.
But as you're writing it and the letters are taking shape and they're coming to life, and some letters are funny, some letters are sexy, some letters are angry, some letters are sorrowful, some letters are reflective, some letters express different types of feelings. There's all these different things that are going on, and then there's just little things that pop up all on their own naturally, like those first three letters. Letter I, uh, you know, uh, is followed by the letter D. And when you put the letters I and D together, you get identification,
Right.
which is that first image that I use in that letter. And then when you get to the third letter, you add the Y, but when you rearrange those letters, you get DIY, do it yourself, which is
Oh.
also part of what I write about in that third letter. So like these sorts of things kind of show up on their own. Completely randomly, the letters C, E, and O show up in that order. And the letter O is about a person in my life who I think is kind of a boss. So I'm able to use that image of the CEO in the letter O as part of that experience. And so there's just little things like that that happen throughout as I was writing all of these letters that just revealed themselves as part of the creative process.
I could just tell you're so delighted with this work and with the creative process that you had for it. And that's infectious. Like now it makes me want to go and read the whole thing all over again. Because there's nothing like author joy. I was talking about this with another author in an earlier episode. And it's funny, like when I say author joy, I know that you couldn't have been, full of glee writing every letter, but to me, joy is something that's deeper. It's something that I don't even know how to express it, but it's something that you just know deep in your soul. You're doing something good for yourself, something that you know is going to be healthy, something that you know makes you want to celebrate. Like I think personally, even getting out bitter, angry moments on the page, that is actually an act of self-care, which also to me could be joyful as well. It's like, hey, I did this, and you release something. Am I overstepping? What do you think about that?
No, I think you're absolutely right. It's like it's so helpful and healthy to not have those things continue to live in your body, to be tied up within you and inside of you. So that's always what I talk about. I talk about the fact that it's super, 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 super important
Yeah.
to have those avenues and those ways to sort of say, okay, you know what? I'm going to get all of this out of me and I'm going to let it live on the page that I've written it on. And now it's not in my body. It's not making me sick. It's not making me angry. It's not making me upset. And it's actually now being crafted into an artistic form that might actually feed somebody else's soul. So now it's not harming my soul, but it's also helping to uplift somebody else's at the same time.
Exactly. And there are so many different things in alphabet soup. I can't imagine somebody would not come away with something that they can also relate to personally. I always say that I don't actually have to relate to something to celebrate and enjoy something. But when you do find something relatable, it just feels like an extra gift. And I can't imagine people reading your book and not coming away with all these little gifts. Um, it's interesting, having something live in your body. I think about how the expression trauma remembers, like
Yeah.
the body remembers trauma. And I think we should express more and more how much writing can release that trauma,
Yeah.
not only from your mind, but from your physical body as well.
Yeah, I agree. And it manifests itself in so many different ways. People do actually get physically sick from these kinds of things. And so if we could encourage people to say, hey, you know what? That stuff where people talk about, put it down on a piece of paper and then burn it. That's real stuff. That's
Mm.
reality. You can take those emotions out of yourself, allow it to be somewhere else, experience it at a distance and look at that and say, that is this particular piece of whatever my personal experience has been that I no longer wish to give my energy, that I no longer wish to give any of my attention to, and I want to release it completely. right? As I say in one of my poems, this poem that I have that's called Angry Life, the
Mm.
second verse of that poem begins with the most important word in English is the word relinquish,
Oh, nice. I like
right?
that.
And so you want to just give it away. You want to give it up. You want to send it on its way. Let it go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let it go because ain't nothing going to break my stride, right?
Oh,
And so,
yes.
right? So you want to get it out of there. And so that has been really a big piece of what has been so powerful for me with this book. Alphabet Soup, a memoir in letters has allowed me to heal.
Hmm.
It's been a really important step in my own personal healing process. And it's art.
It
It's
is art. It's fantastic. I even love the cover. The
oh
cover, I have my copy right here, which I can't show against my green screen because it gets all kind of wonky. But I love it. I love all the colors of the random letters as well. And it's funny for me, colors like this spark joy as well. So I just like having it around. Like I'm keeping it on my coffee table because I like looking at it.
that's terrific. And that was what I was hoping for. It also kind of energetically represents my personality. Like this book cover is very much my personality. And so when I saw this mock-up, I was looking at this mock-up alongside with my fiance, and we had looked at a couple others as well. And when we saw this one, we're like, nope, this is the one, this is the winner. And so that's how that got picked up.
I'm just so glad that this book has been picked up and celebrated because, again, I find it so unique. What would you tell folks who might want to write memoir and write it using poetic prose?
I would tell them to go for it. There's no reason why anyone should feel limited by form or structure or framework to not try something a little bit different, a little something a little bit outside of the box. And the other thing about it too is that as literary artists, we're always constantly trying to push ourselves, to inspire ourselves,
Mm.
to continue to strive to press our own creativity as far forward as we can take it. And so if we can take that opportunity to do something that is like different, but allows us to continue to create and to express, and more importantly, to connect our experiences to the experiences of other people, develop personal themes into universal ones that can impact, affect, and change lives beyond our own, then why should we not do that? And if
Yeah.
there is a work that you have that might work better as poetic prose than rather as standard prose or as standard poetry, go for it. Give it a shot. Why not?
No, exactly. You heard it here, folks. So I hate to say this, but we're getting close to that time. I want to know now that you've released this amazing work, are there any other things coming down the path? What else could we look forward to with a Gregory Frankson name on it?
Well, I'm working on some new programming and courses. I really want to focus on helping to develop new writers and also to provide opportunities and spaces for folks to be able to share their words and their works with other folks. So I'm looking to create some literary opportunities for communal gathering, whether that be through literary groups or on writing retreats or what have you. So I'm working on a program for that. So stay tuned on that front. I'm also
Awesome.
continuing to do my work as the artistic director for Blacklit Durham, as I live in Pickering in Durham region, which has one of the largest Black populations of any area within the country.
Wow.
And so the show that we run, Blacklit Durham, is every other month. It's hosted at the St. Francis Center in historic Pickering Village. And we amplify the voices of Black writers of all genres, fiction, nonfiction, poetry, dub, storytelling, all the different ways that we express ourselves through literature. We're online at blacklitdurham.com. And so we're working to continue to provide spaces and places for folks, both locally folks and folks from the national community of artists to share their words and to interact with our audience. So those are kind of like the two big things that I'm working on creatively. Of course, I'm also doing my own writing in the background. I don't want to say too much about what I'm writing because
Boo, boo, I want
you
to know.
you know how it is. Like you're working on your manuscripts and stuff, and you don't know how everything's gonna turn out. But I definitely have at least three or four ideas for different books that I want to write next. And so moving forward in some way, shape, or form on those. So stay tuned. There are definitely more books coming from me in the future.
Oh, I can't wait. Everything you're doing sounds amazing. And I love that you're paying it forward with community building in literary spaces and the fact that you're also going to be teaching and instructing. That's amazing. And yeah, no, you're awesome. You're just
Uh,
awesome, okay?
well, thank you.
And that leads me just to my last thing. I mean, you've mentioned a lot of wonderful stuff, but in case people don't remember all of this, all these fantastic things you're doing, where can people find you online to learn all about the Gregness?
Well, you can follow along with me on Instagram, which is at Greg_Frankson, or you can check out my website, which is gregfrankson.com. So all those things are my name. So it's very easy to find. Yeah, come on in, send a message, connect, link. I also have an Alphabet Soup page on Facebook. So you can connect to me, like just look up Alphabet Soup, a memoir in letters on Facebook, and then you can follow along there too. So those are the main avenues. I'm on LinkedIn as well, of course, and of course the best ways is to try to come find me in person, like at Gritlit or at Blacklit Durham, etc.
Thank you so much, Greg. I knew the season finale would be something magical. And of course it is, because you were the star of this episode. Thank you so much for coming on the Disabled Crone. I really appreciate having you.
No problem at all, Kat. Very excited to have been here and pleased to be able to connect with your audience.
Thank you so much for listening to our first season of the Disabled Crone. You can go back and listen to all our episodes on our YouTube channel, which also provides closed captions, and where your favorite podcasts are hosted. Thanks so much, and I hope you come back for season 2. To learn more about the Spoonie Authors Network, visit our website and follow us on Blue Sky. And many thanks to Bruce Gordon for composing our theme tune.